Crediting Russian S-400 system, Indian Air Force chief has claimed that India took down 6 Pakistani jets. However, noted defense and strategic affairs expert has argued, among other things, that the air chief's talk has only added to the fog. Mr. Sawhney, who is very much familiar with the Russian S-400 air defense system, has raised some pertinent and plausible questions for the air chief to answer. Let's listen into one and only Mr. Pravin Sawhney.
The first thing that comes to mind is that why did the air chief not identify the type of fighters which were brought down? He said 5 fighters. Because there is no doubt at all that this system, it can detect the targets at 600 kilometers. And if the target is small, then certainly at 400 kilometers. And the chief was talking about all targets within 300 kilometers. So he should have identified what were these fighters, JF-17, F-16s, J-10s, what? He didn't do that. So this is intriguing. Second, he provided no evidence at all of what he said. Next, how is it possible that for all these 3 months, nobody in the world picked up or knew about this? That so many aircraft had been lost by the Pakistan Air Force. It's a big thing. But nobody wrote about this. Then, we also know that as far as Americans are concerned, they have this end user monitoring clause with all the countries where they give their assets. So obviously, if there was a damage to F-16 in the hangar, or if it was shot down by the S-400, certainly the news would have come out. It's very surprising that this didn't happen. No news was heard on this at all. And here is the thing, a very big thing, that the government of India, it came out with an official press release of the Ministry of Defense about the talk given by the air chief, which did not mention about the shooting of these 6 aircraft by the Indian Air Force. And the release is here for the viewers to see. And of course, the next question is the timing. Why is it that the Indian Air Force spoke about such a big news after 3 months? Why not at that time? But I'll answer this question in a while. Now let's move on to the next thing. And the next thing is that in all his talk so far, the chief only spoke about the surface to air missiles. Basically, he was talking about the BrahMos, he was talking about LR-SAMs, he was talking about the S-400s. So we know that they are important in the Air Force when we are talking of air superiority. They support the fighters, they are important. But they by themselves are not enough to have an air superiority because they are all defensive systems. As far as BrahMos is concerned, we know it's a land attack offensive strike capability, and that's fine. But as far as the surface to air missiles are concerned, they're all defensive. So the requirement of the fighters is critical because they are versatile and they provide the offensive capabilities needed for air superiority. And we also know that all these defensive systems, the surface to air missiles, whether you S-400 or any other system, you just buy the system, and what they require is a unidirectional skill. It has various components. It is a teamwork. It has a radar. It has a command and control system. It has then launchers. So the point I'm making is that this unidimensional skill, it can be picked up very fast. It's not a big deal. The big deal is with the fighters and the pilots, because that is where it is not a teamwork. The pilot, he is both the single source of success and failure. And the pilot is operating in a hostile environment, which is a 3-dimensional environment, and it is under severe G forces. So on top of that, now we are also talking about a digital ecosystem backing the fighter. So the point to make is that this is the most important part of the Indian Air Force, and this is the reason that the chief talks about when he talks of the capability of the Indian Air Force. He's talking about the combat squadrons, their strength. And this is the question the media also asks him. So all this that the Indian Air Force or what the chief has said is about these defensive systems, air defense systems. So, what about the fighters of the Indian Air Force? Well, he didn't say much about that, but we heard about that from the Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan. It was when he was at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. This was on the 31st of May that he spoke to the Bloomsbury television, and he said in response to a question that in the initial stages there were losses. How many he didn't specify, but he said we rectified tactics. And on 10th of May, we went in full force. Now it becomes very obvious what rectification of tactics he's talking of. Obviously, instead of the fighters, they brought in these systems.
Mr. Sawhney raises a question about the timing of the so-called revelation made by India's air chief. In order to add to his question, he shows to his viewers an interesting video clip. Let's listen into him again.
Now, next is I was referring to the timing. Why was it not spoken of? Such a big news that 6 kills had happened for 3 months, and why suddenly now? So, for that, please watch this clip. This clip I have picked up from the Twitter from a handle Times Algebra, and I have attributed to that handle also. Please listen in.
You went into Pakistan, you attacked Pakistan, and you told our pilots, do not attack their air defense system. Meaning you told our pilots, go and attack and face the air defense system of Pakistan. Meaning you tied their hands behind their back.
If I can say, what were the reasons for success? One, which I can think of, is that there was political will. I'm being very, very candid here, very open here, because I hear various versions of it. I think if I tell you something, people will have to believe, because I was there listening to everybody, attending every meeting. There was very clear political will, very clear directions which were given to us, and there were no kind of restrictions which were put on it. Many people have spoken somewhere. Unfortunately, everybody is speaking about it. कि कुछ ना कुछ मैं बोल दूंगा इस बारे में. So
Mr. Sawhney also raises a key question about Chief of Defense Staff General Anil Chauhan's approach to warfare by mentioning the latter's recently published book in which the writer has claimed that he has redefined the civil-military fusion. According to him, the timings of the so-called disclosure by the air chief is a diversionary tactic of the Modi government. Let's listen into Mr. Sawhney again.
He talks about the post of CDS. It made a difference. There is something that I want to tell the viewers. Recently, the Chief of Defense Staff, Anil Chauhan, he has written a book which is called Ready, Relevant and Resurgent. And this has a foreword by the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh. And one of the key things that he mentions there is he has redefined, Anil Chauhan has redefined the definition of civil-military fusion. What he says this means is that you fuse the military professionalism with political ideologies. Now, this has never happened before. I'll do a separate video on that. So, the point to make here is that obviously it is the Chief of Defense Staff who decided on the rules of engagement that the chief is talking about, that it was the military leadership that did that, the rules of engagement. And obviously, when you have a thinking like this of mixing political ideology, then the political leadership need not say anything. That was said by the CDS. So, third he says is that I had full freedom. Now, if you do not, the terms of engagements, there is a constraint. If the rules of engagement, there is a constraint. I don't know what freedom he was talking about. And as far as the timing is concerned, I mean, it is very obvious to anybody that the timing was well chosen by the government, because the government is under extreme pressure because of what all has been exposed of the election commission. And the Congress leader Rahul Gandhi is in the lead in exposing all that. And plus, of course, there are pressures from outside also with America. So, to divert the attention, this was perhaps why the air chief was brought in my opinion. Thank you so much.
Mr. Sawhney, in an interview to Karan Thapar, has again argued that Indian air chief's claim doesn't stand to scrutiny at all, asking where is the evidence. According to Mr. Sawhney, there are far too many gaps. He has also said that he strongly believes the claim about shooting down Pakistani planes was a last-minute instruction given to the India's Air Force chief by somebody.
Has made, it doesn't stand to scrutiny at all. There are far too many gaps and there are far too many things. And it all appears that this is a last minute instruction given to the chief by somebody that you please include this in your talk that you are giving there. All I'm saying is that where is the evidence? You should identify and tell the people of India and the world that, okay, 5 fighter planes, what are their types? Were they J-10s? Were they JF-17s? Were they F-16s? I mean, this is something you would know. What I am worried about is that the command, the entire Air Force looks up to the chief. He's the man and he must retain the respect of the command. Because if that respect is lost, these are the things that lead to command breakdown. Indiscipline in the command, that is my worry, that when a chief says something, any chief, and the people inside the service, they know what is the truth. So that leads to losing respect for the chief. Well, there is a bit of a pattern with the government, and that pattern is that whenever they are under pressure, and right now they are under tremendous pressure both within the country and within the country primarily because of Rahul Gandhi. Because Rahul Gandhi has taken up a subject which is exposing the election commission's wrongdoing, and it's a very big thing. So they are under pressure, there's no doubt about it. So in my assessment, this is about deflecting from that issue. The prestige of the Indian military in the international community certainly hasn't, it's pretty come down, which is not a good thing to happen to the country. It doesn't matter really what the Indians think. It also matters what the world thinks about your air power, what the world thinks about your military power.
Minya Zabud Zainab Sarfraz Ahmad, Karachi, Pakistan. Ana Zainab Sarfraz Ahmad, Karachi, Pakistan.